Welcome back. It feels like we just left off right, exploring El-Baroudy's Return to Me the Youth.
It does, doesn't it?
We've uncovered so much already about his longing for the past, his thoughts on freedom and justice. But this part of the poem, this is where things get really interesting.
It does get intense.
He digs into sorrow, time passing, how we find meaning as we age. Heavy stuff. Ready for some thought-provoking poetry.
Absolutely. He tackles these themes head on, doesn't shy away at all. That first verse itself sets the stage for a real internal struggle.
Yeah, you're right. Let's jump into it. The literal translation is, "So too am I, yet I do not weep, though sorrow's weight is mine to bear."
And the poetic version, to give us that extra layer of meaning. Yet I've done no wrong, no crime to bear. Perhaps my sorrow surpasses theirs.
There's this quiet strength there. He's in pain, you can tell, but not falling apart, not weeping openly, almost like he's enduring something even bigger than those around him.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? That line, perhaps my sorrow surpasses theirs. Is that resilience, holding it all in? Or a path to being isolated?
I think El-Baroudy will give us some clues as we keep going.
Oh, for sure. But this idea of suffering in silence, that's universal, isn't it?
It is.
Think about it. Haven't we all held back our emotions sometimes to seem strong or feeling like nobody would get it?
Absolutely.
El-Baroudy's making us think about WHY, that silence happens.
Okay, verse 2. Literally, longing and loss, grief and regret. Oh, what pain is love unmet.
Poetically, even more gut-wrenching. Longing and distance, torment and blame, betrayal's shame, a burning flame.
Raw emotion, right there in those words. Betrayal, shame, a burning flame. You feel the intensity.
You really do.
But what's interesting is he doesn't just blame outside forces. He turns inward too. Oh, how my pride resents my own betrayal and neglect, he says.
Adds complexity, right? He's not just a victim of circumstance. He owns some of the suffering. That self-reproach, the what if I'd done things differently? Haven't we all felt that?
Oh yeah. Even if it's not about romantic love, that feeling is powerful. Verse 3 now shifts the focus a bit. My hand that held the poet's pen now trembles weak, no longer swift.
In the poetic translation, so vivid. My hand moves slow, my pen's embrace, once quick to write, now lacks its grace.
Imagine that. The hand that wrote so easily, now trembling. It's more than just the physical act, isn't it?
It's like a metaphor for losing vitality as we age.
It's sad but relatable. Think of things you used to do easily. Maybe sports, music, and how they get harder. El-Baroudy's mourning his younger self, the one who wrote with such grace.
And that specific metaphor he uses, the withered branch, it's gradual, not sudden, makes it even sadder.
That sense of abilities fading, it creeps up on you, doesn't it?
It does.
Verse 4 addresses this directly. Literally, if my branch has withered and bent, then time alone must bear the blame.
Poetically, if my branch is withered, after bloom, time's hand is firm, it clears the room. Blaming time, right?
He is. There's acceptance there. Like, he knows it's a force of nature. You can't fight it. Universal, right? Aging happens to us all.
It does. We all experience that slowing down in some way.
But is there bitterness under that acceptance? That line, time's hand is firm, it clears the room. It's not just watching. Time is actively shaping things. Sometimes not how we want.
You're right. It adds another layer. Makes you think how we each deal with time passing, those changes it forces on us.
Verse 5, the tone changes again. Yet why should I tremble or bow? Let time bear witness to what I am.
Defiance. He won't just give in. Be judged for WHO he is, even if his abilities aren't what they were.
Like he's saying, time took some things, but not my essence. Daring time to judge him, knowing he'll stand up to it. What about you, listener? Would you tremble?
It makes you think what really matters in a life. Achievements, or something deeper about the kind of person you are.
El-Baroudy thinks it's the latter. He's not afraid because he lived guided by truth, integrity. Verse 6 digs into this. I searched my deeds and found them pure, no shame, no guilt upon my soul.
Poetically, same idea. No sin, no fault, no past regret, nothing for which I must atone or fret. Deliberate searching, he didn't just glance back. That peace he finds, it comes from facing his past head on.
It contrasts with verse 2, where there was self-blame. He's worked through it, found resolution. But is that always realistic, such a perfect past? El-Baroudy had power, surely there were compromises.
Good point. Maybe it's more of an ideal, something to strive for. We might not be perfect, but aiming for that integrity is important.
And then it becomes about what truth even means in a world so complex, morally gray. El-Baroudy never shies away from tough questions. That's what makes this so good.
It is.
Verse 7 now, some frustration creeps in. So how can they deny my light when wisdom glows in all I write?
Poetically, yet still they doubt my worth, my claim, my wisdom spread, but still they blame. The stoic facade cracks a bit. He's bitter, his wisdom isn't appreciated like he thinks it should be.
Like that age-old struggle, artists feeling misunderstood, history's full of folks only recognized after they're gone. Maybe El-Baroudy fears that too.
Could be. It makes his plea to time even stronger. History will vindicate him, even if people now don't get it.
Verse 8, powerful declaration. Literally, I am my words, my pride, my name though noble, my blood, my verse is my fame.
And poetically, I am the son of words, my pride in poetry's truth, I'll not be denied. Bold. His poetry defines him more than his lineage, putting creative output, legacy, as the true measure of worth.
Makes you think, in our world, obsessed with image, what's your core identity? Your work, beliefs. El-Baroudy makes us examine what we truly hold dear.
Deep stuff. And it shows how timeless his work is. Centuries later, still making us ponder these questions.
Verse 9 now, beautiful imagery for his poetry's power. My poems shine like stars above a beauty no darkness can obscure.
Poetically, my verses live. They stand the test, a legacy that will not rest. The stars, his poems, shining even in darkness. Art's enduring nature right there.
I love that he uses stars not just for beauty, but guidance, hope. His poetry can illuminate, offer solace in dark times.
Like this podcast, right? Centuries later, we're still finding meaning in his words. That's art connecting across time.
You're right. Okay, verse 10, how his poetry specifically helps. The grieving heart finds solace there, and the lost soul follows their guiding light.
Directly stating the power of his words. It makes you think about how any art gets us through tough times. Music that soothes, books giving new perspectives.
And it connects to what you said, how time isn't just destructive, but renewing. El-Baroudy's poetry, maybe it's a way to find that renewal amidst loss and uncertainty.
That's a great connection. He's not just sad about time. He's giving us ways to deal with it, find beauty amidst the changes.
Nearing the end now, verse 11, powerful image of his legacy. Look to my words and you will see a sculpted soul, eternal, free.
Poetic version, same idea. Look at my poetry and you will see a reflection of my soul set free. This is deep. His words are his essence, lasting beyond his physical self.
And eternal, free. Wow. Art gives us freedom, both making it and experiencing it. When something resonates, it's like our own out soul is freed a bit.
Beautiful way to put it. Art's not just entertainment, it's connecting to something bigger, our shared humanity.
Okay, last stretch. Verse 12. Wisdom that's still so relevant. Literally, let not the masks of men deceive, for not all trees bear bitter fruit.
And poetically, don't let the world's deceitful game distract you from truth, the eternal flame. Be discerning, look past appearances for the truth. So relevant in our world of social media where everything's curated.
It is easy to get caught in that deceitful game. He's saying stay focused on the real, the true.
And appearances deceive, don't they? Like the trees, not all people are what they seem. Look deeper.
You've arrived at the final verse. For man without wisdom is merely clay, a frame of dust soon to decay.
Poetically, hitting us hard. For without reason, man's lost way a hollow shell at the end of the day. Without wisdom, we're empty, fading away. Life without meaning, purpose is hollow. Makes you think, what are you doing to cultivate wisdom?
What are we reading, learning, experiencing to grow? El-Baroudy is calling us to action. Embrace lifelong learning.
Wisdom isn't overnight. It's constant questioning, exploring. El-Baroudy reminds us that journey is worth it.
Man, that last verse from part 1 about being mere clay without wisdom, it stuck with me. We're just empty without that deeper understanding, fading away.
Makes you think, what are we filling ourselves with, right? If El-Baroudy's is poetry, is wisdom, what about us, listening? What will we leave behind?
Heavy question to ponder. And it ties into everything we've been discussing, this idea of legacy, how we deal with time passing. El-Baroudy seems to be saying wisdom is the key to a legacy that lasts.
I agree, but wisdom isn't just knowing a lot, right?
Right.
It's about applying it, living it. Choices we make, actions, impact on others. That's wisdom in action.
So can't just read poetry, gotta be out about it too.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about El-Baroudy. He's not just talking about wisdom, he's living it. In his life, his art, all those tough human things, sorrow, searching for meaning, he's wrestling with it. And wants us to as well.
One thing that gets to me is he acknowledges the bad stuff but doesn't get swallowed by it. There's hope there, even in the dark parts.
I think that hope comes from knowing his words will outlast him. His poetry, that sculpted soul, it'll endure. It's like saying art can be stronger than time itself. Powerful stuff.
It makes you think about all the ways we make legacies. It doesn't have to be poems or big art. Could be the relationships we build, being kind, those little acts that ripple out and touch people.
Exactly. It's not just the big things, it's the everyday choices that shape the world. El-Baroudy reminds us we all have that power, famous or not.
Okay, back to something you said before about El-Baroudy tackling the tough parts of being human. We've seen the sorrow, time passing, feeling misunderstood, but there's this fight in him too, not giving in to despair.
Absolutely. He's been through it all, but never loses sight of his own worth. Confident in himself, his truth, and other people's opinions can't touch that.
And that fight, that defiance, that's what makes it feel real even centuries later. We all have those moments, feeling defeated, but El-Baroudy shows us we can choose how to react, give in or rise above, find strength inside ourselves.
Resilience is the word, isn't it? And it's not pretending everything's okay. It's seeing the bad stuff, the doubts, and pushing through anyway.
Like that withered branch image, right? He knows it's declined, lost some vigor, but it's still part of things. Maybe not blooming, but giving shelter, helping the whole forest.
Beautiful way to see it. Aging, loss, it's not the end, just a new chapter with new challenges, new ways to grow.
And he connects that branch to time. It's like time takes stuff away, but also makes space for new things. Life's always changing, and accepting that, not fighting it, that's how we find peace.
Makes you think about the title, Return to Me, the Youth. What's he really after? Literally being young again, or something deeper?
Good question. On the surface, yeah, it seems like wanting that energy back. But I think it's more the tension between youth's beauty and the wisdom you get as you age. Maybe real usefulness isn't about looks, it's how you approach life. Curiosity, being open, ready for new things.
Insightful. So how do we keep that wonder, even as we get older? Staying curious, engaged with the world, never losing that excitement to learn.
So maybe that's what El-Baroudy wants back, that youthful mindset, that sense of possibility.
And maybe wisdom is the key to that. As we understand ourselves, the world, we tap into a different kind of youthfulness. Not physical, but appreciating how amazing and complex life is.
I like that. It brings us back to that last verse, how being empty is linked to lacking wisdom. Real fulfillment, that youthful spirit, it comes from engaging deeply, seeking knowledge, letting that guide our actions.
It's a journey that never ends, this self-discovery, finding wisdom, always more to learn, to explore. El-Baroudy is the perfect example of that.
Glad we took this deep dive together. Feels like we just scratched the surface of what this poem holds. Curious to hear what our listeners took away from it all.
We too. What resonates with you out there? What did El-Baroudy spark in you? Let us know.
We've been through a lot with this poem, haven't we?
We have sorrow, resilience, time, searching for meaning.
It's amazing how much he fits into these verses, and centuries later, it still hits us hard, you know?
Just how good he was. His words just laughed.
As we wrap up, I keep thinking about that sculpted soul from verse 11, how our words, our creative stuff, it becomes part of who we are deep down.
Powerful image, right? Makes you think, what would your sculpted soul even look like? If your words told your story, what would the story be?
That's a question worth asking, isn't it? We get so busy, it's easy to forget what really matters, what we want to leave behind.
El-Baroudy reminds us we all have that potential to make something meaningful. Doesn't have to be fancy art either.
No.
Could be just a kind word, helping someone, a real connection with another person. Those things leave a mark too.
I like that. And for El-Baroudy, it was poetry. That was his way of expressing himself, understanding the world.
And he believed in it, that words could heal, inspire, guide. Like in verse 10, right? The grieving heart finds solace there. He wanted his poetry to help people who were hurting. Art can do that, change us for the better.
Absolutely. Makes you think how much art impacts us in all its forms, makes us laugh, cry, think differently. I think that's part of what El-Baroudy's getting at. Embrace art. Let it enrich us. Let it make the world better.
Couldn't agree more. And one thing I admire about him is he's so committed to truth. You know, through all the tough stuff, he owns his flaws, argues with those who don't get him, but he never pretends to be something he's not.
That's huge. He could make things prettier, made himself seem better. But she shows us the real messy parts of life, and that's why it still feels true today.
It's that honesty that makes it timeless. He's not hiding his scars, his doubts. He's saying it's okay to be imperfect, to still be figuring things out.
Important message in a world that's all about seeming perfect, right? El-Baroudy says, the real strength is embracing those imperfect parts, using them to grow.
And that's a good note to end on, I think. As we finish up with Return to Me, the Youth, I hope you take away that sense of wonder, that belief in the power of words, and that it's okay to be on your own journey, growing and changing.
Beautifully put. And listener, this isn't the end of the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts. What stuck with you from the poem? What did you discover during this deep dive?
Keep those Arabian echoes alive. Thank you for joining us.